The average cost to build a single aircraft carrier is estimated to be around $7 billion. That's a mind-boggling number, especially if you consider that many countries' entire nominal GDPs are less than that number, like the Maldives as an example. Why are countries like the USA, China, and Russia throwing so much money on improving this invention? You see, in modern times, aircraft carriers are an essential element in global powers' arsenals. Having more of these carriers in terms of volume, sheer size, and technology sophistication will make you look like the emperor of the seas. You might be wondering, how many aircraft carriers does the US have? How many aircraft carriers does India have? That's what we will discuss in this video. We'll answer all of your questions, and by doing so as well, we'll analyze and explain how aircraft carriers are shaping our modern geopolitics. That way, you can look like the smartest person on the table in your future family meetings, if somehow there is a discussion about aircraft carriers. Let's begin. Before taking a look at the numbers and how many aircraft carriers are owned by each country that has it, let's define what an aircraft carrier is, for those who are wondering. An aircraft carrier is this huge warship that serves as a floating air base above the Earth's oceans. It houses a full-length flight deck as well as facilities for carrying, arming, deploying, and recovering aircraft. Their main objective is to project air power worldwide without depending on local bases for staging aircraft operations. Jet pilots can seamlessly take off and land on these carriers. You might have seen this happen in video games like Battlefield 3 if you were a gamer, or in movies like Top Gun Maverick. In recent years, aircraft carriers have seen growing popularity amongst the public, even outside of news outlets, thanks to pop culture. Some people might wonder about the origins of these bird farms, as experts in the aviation world call them. Each country has its own history with aircraft carriers, but generally, the concept started humbly in 1911 with the American aviation pioneer Eugene Ely, who did a flight test by taking off from a platform built atop the USS Birmingham cruiser and then landing on it. From that point on, every strong big boy navy in the world was like, hold up a minute, this idea will revolutionize our naval and aerial warfare capabilities. And so the arms race began. With each decade passing, we've seen bigger and better aircraft carriers built by the British, the Japanese, the Americans, and even the Frenchies. We've had the Japanese Hosyo carrier in World War I, the American USS Wasp in World War II, the nuclear-powered carrier named the USS Enterprise in the Cold War as one of the many examples. And although these carriers are modest by today's standards, they still laid the foundation of what is about to come. Today, we have highly sophisticated carriers equipped with electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, or EMALS, advanced combat systems, and some of the weapons that are on these warships are unsurprisingly classified and hidden from the public eye for strategic reasons. There are many types of aircraft carriers in the world. The one we will focus on in this video will be the fleet aircraft carrier type. These are the scariest man-made whales that can carry up to 90 fixed-wing aircraft and can roam every corner of our oceans without refueling for 25 years. And these are the countries that own them. We'll start off with the Italian Navy. Here, we are talking about Italy's pride army vessel, the Cavour. Commissioned in 2009 with a cost of $1.39 billion to build, the Cavour is one of the largest European combat ships ever. With a length of 244 meters long and a width of 40 meters, it's no surprise really. It has a displacement of 27,900 tons under load. To put that in a weird perspective, it can basically carry more than 55,800 pizzas on board, and no, we definitely didn't spend a couple minutes calculating that. Anyways, it was designed and sized from the outset to accommodate the STOVL version of the new American combat aircraft developed by Lockheed Martin. For this purpose, its size is much greater than the helicopter carrier, the Garibaldi, which, by the way, is the first Italian carrier, operational since 1985. During its last period of maintenance, which lasted 16 months, the Cavour benefited from a complete overhaul of its systems, various renovations, but also, and above all, major adaptation work for the implementation of short takeoff and vertical landing aircrafts, such as the F-35B. These will replace the 15-year-old AV-8B Harrier II of the Italian Naval Aeronautics and allow the Marine military to have a significant airstrike force for the first time in its history. Indeed, even if the F-35B does not offer the capabilities of catapult aircraft like the FA-18 Super Hornet, Rafale Marine, and F-35C, it will be much more powerful and dissuasive than the Harriers, and that fleet Italian Army has been implementing since the 90s. Now, let's move on to the second European country we have today. The French spent a whopping $5.5 billion building their one and only aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle carrier. Named after the statesman and army officer Charles de Gaulle, this nuclear-powered vessel was built in Brest from November 25, 1987, and admitted to active service in 2001. With a displacement of 40,600 tons and over 261.5 meters long, France's only active aircraft carrier can accommodate up to 40 modern aircraft. For more than 20 years of operations, it has a remarkable reliability record. Heracles, Agapanthe, Harmattan, Bois-Belot, Aramanches, Chamal are the missions which punctuate its operational success, without forgetting its diplomatic action punctuated by high-value international exercises. She is probably the world's most capable aircraft carrier behind the US's supercarriers, by virtue of the fact that it is the only other aircraft carrier currently in service that uses steam catapults. All of the other carriers in the world utilize a ski ramp and/or VSTOL fighter jets. More recently, however, big maintenance work has been conducted by the crew of the Charles de Gaulle, the Industrial Naval Group, and its around 200 subcontractors. It left its dock at the Arsenal in Toulon and returned to sea on January 9, 2024, after several months of modernization work. From the catapults to the ship's hospital, several key pieces of equipment have been renovated or overhauled by the Naval Group. Interestingly enough, the French Minister of the Armed Forces announced a new machine intended to replace the Charles de Gaulle. Constructions will begin between the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026, with the first sea trials planned for 2036. That's how the French aircraft carrier world is doing at the moment. Now, let's take a look at what the Russian aircraft carrier realm looks like. We cannot simply talk about aircraft carriers without talking about the Russian Federation. This country only has one aircraft carrier, the Admiral Khnutskov, but it's well endowed as a beast. This 305-meter vessel is powered by steam turbines, serving as the flagship of the Russian Navy. It was built by the Black Sea Shipyard, which was one of the largest industrial facilities in the Russian Empire and the sole manufacturer of Soviet aircraft carriers. She was launched in 1985 before becoming fully operational in 1995. Historical context suggests that the Soviets were worried that the Americans had the advantage in nuclear missiles and that their carriers would launch airplanes that could carry nuclear weapons. The Russian Bear needed its own carriers to go up against the US Navy, so they built the Knutsov and named it after Nikolai Knutsov, who was basically an admiral of the fleet of the Soviet Union and the People's Commissar of the Navy during the Winter War and Second World War. Just like the Frenchies, the Russians named their beloved aircraft carrier after a famous national and historical figure. One of the characteristics of this beast is that it can carry about 24 to 26 aircraft, ranging from helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft like the Sukhoi Su-33 that can wreak havoc in the air, can execute fleet defense operations, and can perform air support missions like the ones we've seen time and time again in Syria. The carrier also can contain the Kamov Ka-27 and Kamov Ka-27S helicopters that are used as anti-submarine aircrafts. However, it's important to note that due to the many accidents that this warship faced, like the 2018 crane incident, the Admiral Knutsov is undergoing repairs and a series of tests before getting back to active duty again. It's believed that it will be ready again either later this year or in 2025. 5,000 kilometers away from the motherland, we have India, that has its own growing aircraft carrier program. In recent years, India began flexing its naval muscles by having two aircraft carriers, INS Vikramaditya and INS Vikrant. But wait, that's not all. there are serious plans on acquiring a third vessel in the future. But first, let's talk about the two carriers that the Indian naval ship, or the INS, has at the moment. India purchased the INS Vikramandita from Russia in 2004 for $2.4 billion. Since then, it underwent extensive refitting, including a larger flight deck, modern radar systems, and enhanced aviation facilities. Originally, this aircraft carrier was built as a Soviet Kiev-class carrier Baikal. That pretty much explains the Soviet style of design that includes 284 meters in length and a displacement of 45,000 tons. When it was eventually in the hands of the Indian government, it was renamed to INS Vikramandita, and it significantly enhanced the subcontinent's naval power projection capabilities. The second Indian aircraft carrier, which is the INS Vikrant, is the first warship aircraft carrier to be built in India. There has been a previous version of this warship with the same name, and it served well in the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. Providing air support for naval operations. But that ship got decommissioned in 1997. The vessel we're talking about is the newer, more powerful version, the Vikrant 2013. Let's take a closer insight into its design. It measures 262 meters long and 62 meters wide, displacing 45,000 tons. It accommodates up to 36 aircraft, including 26 combat planes and helicopters like the Dhruv Mk3, Sikorsky MH-60R, and Kamov Ka-31 for various roles. Fun fact, the infamous automotive company known as Tata developed the combat management system in 2019 for this aircraft. Next time when you're driving on the road and you see a Tata, make sure to remember this fact. Now, let's come back to the European continent and discuss what the Brits have been cooking. The current number of aircraft carriers located in the United Kingdom is only 2. The HMS Queen Elizabeth and the HMS Prince of Wales. Let's start with the HMS Queen Elizabeth. She is a formidable aircraft carrier representing the epitome of British naval power. Commissioned in 2017, she is the lead ship of her class and the largest warship ever built for the Royal Navy. With a length of 280 meters and a displacement of around 65,000 tons, this majestic vessel boasts state-of-the-art technology and capabilities. Equipped with the latest in radar systems, missile defenses, and cutting-edge aircraft, including the F-35B Lightning II, she serves as a versatile platform for both offensive and defensive operations. Beyond her military prowess, she serves as a symbol of national pride and maritime strength for the United Kingdom. She also serves as the crew morale, boasting tea breaks, occasionally if there are no tea shortages on board. We're not joking, by the way. In 2021, there has been an actual issue involving tea shortage. The Brits simply cannot live without tea. Reportedly, the HMS Queen Elizabeth cost a tidy sum of $3.4 billion. Despite this colossal budget, it does not yet seem operational. Lately, the ship suffered technical damage linked to its propulsion, preventing it from joining NATO forces in the Baltic Sea, where Operation Steadfast Ready is taking place. Speedy recovery, Queen Elizabeth. As for the HMS Prince of Wales carrier, it was commissioned in late 2019. Much like her twin sister, the Queen Elizabeth, the original 2008 design of Prince of Wales envisaged flying F-35B Lightning II short takeoff and vertical landing jets from a ski jump ramp. However, in May 2010, the government published its Strategic Defense and Security Review, which stated that Prince of Wales might be converted to a catapult-assisted takeoff system known as a catabar configuration that can operate the F-35C. It suffered major setbacks in the past few years, but apparently repairs were successful and the HMS Prince of Wales is ready for active service. This carrier is expected to head over to the NATO Steadfast exercise operation. It's safe to say that both the HMS Prince of Wales and the HMS Queen Elizabeth resemble the prowess of the Royal Navy. China currently operates 2 aircraft carriers, with the news of a third carrier being confirmed to start operating next year, while there are future plans to acquire a 4th carrier as well, but we'll get into that in just a second. Liaoning is China's first aircraft carrier that was commissioned in 2012. She was originally classified as a training ship, intended to allow the Navy to experiment, train, and gain familiarity with aircraft carrier operations. Fun fact about this vessel, it was laid down by the Soviet Union in 1985. However, after the fall of the USSR, the Dalian Naval Shipyard, which is part of China's Shipbuilding Industry Corporation, bought it from Ukraine. And after making huge upgrades to the Yaoning, the role of this vessel went from training to combat. The Plan, or People's Liberation Army Navy, also commissioned two other incredible aircraft carriers as well, Shandong and Fujian. Shandong's design resembles its predecessor, but with changes that include removal of silo space for anti-ship missiles, smaller island structure, and an additional glaze deck, enhancing flight efficiency. Fujian, which is the newest carrier for China on the other hand, is said to use steam turbines and electromagnetic catapults rather than ski jumps used by the other two. This vessel will be the largest Chinese carrier ever when it commences active service in 2025 with a displacement of more than 80,000 tons. This will probably be the biggest aircraft carrier that China ever had, capable of carrying 50% more jets than the Liaoning. China is also currently building a fourth supercarrier, the Type 004 aircraft carrier that runs on nuclear marine propulsion systems. There are so many speculations about this mysterious boogeyman, or should we say boogie carrier, and it's believed that it will be much larger in size than every Chinese aircraft carrier we have seen before. It will probably include technologies we haven't even heard of before. This carrier program in general reflects the CCP's vision of making the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, a world-class military by 2049, a plan that has always been part of President Xi Jinping's dream of building a great modern socialist country, a plan that will probably make China more capable of competing militarily with the US. Speaking of which, the United States of America operates the largest fleet of aircraft carriers. In total, there are 11 fleet carriers that can deploy anywhere in the world, thanks to their highly immense range. These aircraft vessels are divided into two primary classes, the Nimitz-class carriers and the newer Ford-class carriers that are still under construction. The Nimitz class is basically a group of warships with similar design that includes 10 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. This class is named after World War II American Pacific Fleet Commander Chester W. Nimitz. The Nimitz program was initiated in the late 1960s around the Vietnam War, and for decades, this class remained a symbol of American naval power and a cornerstone of U.S. military strategy. Each warship is equipped with highly sophisticated nuclear propulsion systems that allows the carriers to operate continuously for over 20 years without refueling. Up until 2017, they were the largest warship ever built, measuring over 1,000 feet or about 300 meters in length, capable of accommodating 85 to 90 aircraft of different types. The construction of all 10 Nimitz carriers took a hefty amount of time, between 1968 to 2006 to be exact, and in total they house about 5,000 sailors and aircraft crew members. Think of them as floating cities that run on nuclear power and are equipped with Mark 29 guided missile launching systems. Yeah, that's what the deal is with these supercarriers. But if you thought this was impressive, wait until you see the newest edition of the American aircraft carrier fleet, the $13 billion Gerald R. Ford class. The entire Gerald R. Ford class is currently being constructed for the United States Navy, which intends to eventually acquire 10 of these warships in order to replace current carriers on a one-for-one basis, starting with the lead ship of her class, Gerald R. Ford CVN-78 in 2017. This type of aircraft carrier has picked up so much popularity in recent times. Here is why. Recently, the U.S. is trying to make even bigger aircraft carriers that incorporate even more advanced technologies and capabilities. The new vessels have a similar design to that of the Nimitz class, but they carry 23 newer advanced technologies such as the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, advanced arresting gear and aircraft weapons elevators, as well as other design features intended to improve efficiency and reduce operating costs, like having a relatively smaller crew on deck, about 20% less than the previous class. With a debt valued at $34 trillion in total, it's no surprise that the United States seems to try and reduce costs as much as possible, while also trying to maintain naval control the best it can. If you were watching news segments in the past few months, you probably saw the Ford lurking around the eastern Mediterranean region following the 7th of October. The carrier stayed in that zone while its accompanying warships had sailed into the Red Sea, where they repeatedly intercepted incoming ballistic missiles and attack drones fired from Yemen. So it seems that the Gerald Ford carrier not only managed to demonstrate the United States' military presence, but also give the world a glimpse of its ability to project force across vast distances using its advanced capabilities. Aircraft carriers are indispensable assets in modern naval operations. There are reasons why there are a small number of countries that have the ability to have them. The immense cost, the technological complexities are one of the reasons, but they can serve their countries that have all the capabilities to have them with their flexible naval power. Only time can tell how the world of aircraft carriers could change in the coming years and decades. There are countries that used to operate them but simply can't afford to anymore due to the high costs that come with it. The best example of this is Canada. However, we might see newer countries possessing carriers in the future. South Korea is currently building the CVX, a class of aircraft carriers that we don't really know too much about, other than that it will enter the South Korean naval service in 2030. That's all for today. If you found this video entertaining and helpful, please leave a like and subscribe, and let us know if your country was on the list.